So I thought at the end, I had been doing coaching. I was an executive and life coach on the side at my work. And I thought I'd love to actually focus my coaching on divorce coaching. So I went and found that there was actually a course in the States that specialized in divorce coaching and did that just before lockdown. So that was my kind of lockdown project. And then myself and another lady from the UK who is a forensic psychologist and has been doing coaching for over 20 years herself, decided to open the Divorce Coaching Academy here in the UK and Ireland. We brought all of our experience from the coaching we'd learned from our own backgrounds, and then we added in Mr. Divorce Coach Tom Nash to get the male perspective. And now we offer an accredited professional accreditation accredited by the Association for Coaching to become not only a coach, but a coach that also focuses on divorce.
Just a little taster of what is coming up on the show. But first, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. And also tell your friends and family about this podcast. Please let us know in the comments if you would like to hear any particular topic in relation to sleep or health. And I will create a show especially for you, just for asking the question. So let's get on with the show.
Before we start today's video, please be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Empowering Family Health podcast. Again, we have an amazing guest. We're going to talk all about divorce, separation, a very hard topic, I suppose, to have a conversation about, but it's very much needed at the moment. We're going to be talking all about that and a conference that is coming up. And Mel Murphy is a divorce coach. She's going to be talking to us today all about this current situation and what people may face and what they can do to ease the process of this transition. So let me read out Mel's bio before I bring her in. So Mel Murphy, she is the owner of Mel Murphy International and Separation and Divorce Coaching Ireland and a co-owner of the Divorce Coaching Academy. She is a professional speaker, a #1 best-selling author, and she has over 24 years of professional, executive and coaching experience. Mel enables professionals and executives to build resilience through their own separation and divorce process. And Mel works with corporate HR and diversity and inclusion teams to build wellness policies that support the career of those transitioning through separation and divorce, and offers in-house divorce coaching for employees. And despite her own painful path from marriage through separation and then divorce, from bankruptcy to a strong career and thriving in life, Mel now enjoys a respectful and co-parenting approach with her ex-husband, and her children are flourishing. So, Mel, you are very, very welcome to the podcast. So delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Great. The first question I always ask people is, I'm always curious what got them into this business, this area of expertise. And obviously you had your own transition. Why, Mel, why did you decide to take this on as a career choice?
So I went through my own very difficult and antagonistic separation and then divorce. At the time, you had to be separated 4 years before you could divorce. And it was unfortunately, I was leading an abusive marriage. So we couldn't go through mediation, and we ended up going through judicial separation, which means going through the court system. It was a long and arduous process. Once we were separated officially in court, about a year and a half later, we were able to actually officially divorce because it had been about 4 years. And we had gotten through all of the emotional part. We had trialed, the co-parenting with the children. We've been living apart for that long now, 4 years. The emotions had died down, and we'd been able to renew our communication and our parenting approach. So we actually ended up doing a DIY divorce. So instead of spending $25,000 on the courts process, spent about $500, maybe $800 with couple of lawyers looking over everything first before we signed. to DIY our divorce. And so, when I was going through that process, I almost went bankrupt. I almost lost my job. I went through a lot of mental health stuff where I couldn't, get the support I needed for that. Because if I was to say, hey, I'm drowning here, I thought I was going to lose the children. So I had to just be super resilient. I had been resilient I went and ran the marathon, and I did different things to kind of keep my head focused on, just well-being and on keeping my head above water. So I thought at the end, I had been doing coaching. I was an executive and life coach on the side at my work. And I thought I'd love to actually focus my coaching on divorce coaching. So I went and found that there was actually a course in the States that specialized in divorce coaching, and did that just before lockdown. So that was my kind of lockdown project. And then myself and another lady from the UK who is a forensic psychologist and has been doing coaching for over 20 years herself, decided to open the Divorce Coaching Academy here in the UK and Ireland, because we felt that there wasn't really the education that you needed to become a divorce coach over on this side of the world. We brought all of our experience from the coaching we'd learned from our own backgrounds, and then we added in Mr. Divorce Coach Tom Nash to get the male perspective. And now we offer an accredited professional accreditation accredited by the Association for Coaching to become not only a coach, but a coach that also focuses on divorce. So that's where it really kind of came from. It was just wanting to help others who are in the same situation as myself, most of whom, just didn't want to talk about it or didn't let people know what they were going through because of the shame and the feeling of failure. And that's what a lot of people, especially pre-COVID, felt, that if they were going through separation or divorce, they felt shame, they felt failure, they didn't want to tell people about it, except maybe their closest friends. Many of them just stayed separated, never divorced. So I found there's been a huge change in that, because there's been over a 30% increase in the divorce rate.
I was going to ask you that
in the last few years since COVID. So the media has really talked a lot more about it. So the conversation is more out there. But when I did the first Divorce in Ireland conference ever last year, it was all about, the shame. It was about, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that no one dares talk about.
Yep. Yeah, and I really get that, the shame, when you're talking about the emotion of shame and this feeling of failure and letting ourselves out because, not good enough, I mustn't have been good enough if my husband, if this happened or whatever, we kind of blame ourselves a little bit, even though, there's all the arguing. Well, there can be. Sometimes it can be amicable, but most of the time it's not. And this sense of, I wasn't good enough to make my marriage survive, to our family, to our friends, and they're looking down, and the judgment, and even our children, our own children, because they're looking up to us, and if they see our parents failing, we don't want our children to think less of us really either. So it's a huge emotional, and the shame and guilt is they're two of the very lowest vibration. If we're getting to that shame and guilt area, it's very hard to pick ourselves back up again. And you were talking a lot about, resilience, through this whole transition, and it's a very long process, so how did you, I know you were talking about marathons, and there was a lot that you did to occupy yourself, but how does one have resilience? Because it's not just a short-term thing. This can go on for a number of years, and lots of different things pop up in the middle of all of that. The ability to rest is the body's key to healing. Do you struggle with getting asleep at nighttime, or staying asleep during the night and waking up the next morning feeling absolutely exhausted? My book, How to Get a Good Night's Sleep, is easy to understand, it's solution-based, and it's packed with research to help you take back control of your night's sleep. My book is available on Amazon, and it's also available on howtogetaggoodnightsleep.com. This book is also available in audio and ebook. So get your copy today and start having the best night's sleep that you've only ever dreamed of.
Yeah, and we talk about that as coaches. One of the first things you talk to your client about is how are you feeling right now? What's your well-being like? And we always end the conversation at the end of the meeting with the same sort of conversation about how's your well-being? What steps are you taking? Because it is so important. And when people start the process of separation and they don't realize how long it could take. I mean, it could take a couple of years, but the courts can be so slow. If you aren't able to go through mediation and you need to go through a different process, it can take quite a while. So it's all about who's your support network. So it's identifying who's your tribe, I guess. And it's not always going to be who you think it's going to be, because when you're separating, a lot of friends think that they're going to like catch this off you. And because you're separating or divorcing, it could impact their relationships. They kind of back away. They don't catch the divorce bug, right?
Or even it's hard for them to talk to you about it as well. I find that.
Yeah, exactly. Or they don't really want to take sides. They don't want to get too involved. So it's not always the people you think are going to be there for you who are. Yeah. So I think that's a bit of an eye-opener for people. Family can sometimes have their own views on things too, and can sometimes provide unsolicited advice that doesn't suit the current situation. So we talk about who is really in your inner circle that you can really depend on. You know, there should be a couple of people there that you can really lean on. But then it comes to a time where, well, how long can you lean on these people? Is there a different type of conversation you can have, not just talking about your separation and your divorce when you're with them, just to kind of get away from it a little bit?
Yeah.
And about
live, because you're still living, aren't you?
It's about living and saying, okay, apart from just, you do need to talk to someone about your story. So sometimes having a counselor is good for it. A divorce coach obviously is great. Sometimes you can have some charities like the Samaritans you can call up and have a chat to. If you just need to talk to someone, there isn't really anyone around. There's lots of good support charities out there. But it's also about getting away from the story, getting away from the poor me. Because yes, there's a poor me, but there's also a free me. There's a happy new me. And I talk to a lot of my clients about that. I run a program around how to live your best life despite divorce. And I try to get people on that before they've even finished their divorce, because it's about becoming as free as you can now, so that you can identify and uncover and unpeel back the onion to the person that you lost maybe many years ago. So looking at what is it that you used to love doing? Is there a hobby or something you used to love doing? It can even be simple. It's very simple, such as just getting out for walks every day, 45 minutes, having someone come and mind your children, or during your lunch break or something like that. Or I used to go out dancing, so I took up salsa dancing. We had an au pair, I had an au pair come in. So the children and I all stayed in one room and she stayed in the other room. But it was great because she would babysit one evening a week for me. And I go out salsa dancing, and the music and everything was just very happy, and it was just nice and social. So something that's going to lift your spirits a little bit is very important. And I have people go through and write down all the things that just bring them joy. And it can be something like hanging out in their favorite part of their apartment or home, drinking from their favorite mug, sitting underneath the tree that they love, just very simple things that bring joy. It doesn't have to be complicated or take too long.
I love that because, reminding people of what brings them joy, because we can kind of forget that when we're down in the depths of, doom and gloom and not being able to see hope. And I really hear that you're helping people imagine, envision, the new you. And that's really important. And like there's different areas to it. Like you mentioned the support network, getting a support network. And there's different areas. Obviously your well-being is super, super important, because that's your driver, that's your health. You don't want to get sick or have a burnout or anything like that because there is a lot of turmoil. So I really hear, doing something that you love and enjoy, and then your well-being as well. And obviously sleep is a very big part of that as well. Yes, so we need to, if we're worried in our head all the time, all these worries and what have you, and I get it, it's really, really difficult. But if we're not sleeping, it's just going to compound all of that as well. So I will be speaking at your event. We're going to talk about your event now. But tell me, Mel, like you have all these, what areas do people need to consider? Obviously there's finances, that's obviously a big one. But you have many different speakers at your event, and the event is called Divorce in Ireland Conference, and it's Divorce with Confidence. I absolutely love that. So tell us a little bit about the conference itself and the kind of speakers that people can expect to see there that will help them in their support network.
Yeah, so it's our second year to run the conference. It's the only conference of its kind in Ireland. It's called the Divorce in Ireland Conference. It's happening next Friday, November 10th. Last year, we just had a 4 hours. So this year, we had so many different speakers, and it was so popular last year that it's a full day from 9:30 to 5:30. And each speaker is speaking for about 20 minutes with about 10 minutes for Q&A. Sometimes we don't have time for Q&A. We're trying to fit so many people in. So we're going to do either breakout rooms or a panel after every third or fourth speaker. So people who join can ask them questions or bring questions to that group. I've divided it out into, so it's online, by the way. I've kept it online because of the fact that a lot of people are private about their separation and divorce, as I talked about before. And even though it's changed a lot, I think a lot of people still prefer to hide behind a screen. So I say no video. People can change their names and come incognito. And it's a webinar, so they should be able to send me, questions anonymously. So I could ask it for them if they need to. And I think it's best that way. Next year, I might do a hybrid in person and online for those who want to meet people, because I did do a retreat last year that people like. They like that support. But what I'm trying to cover, I just want to give people as much information as possible on the key areas that I've seen coming up. I've supported about 300 clients now over the last few years, and the key areas that I see, and that is a major one I see is about finding the right family solicitor. I see a lot of people who are stuck with maybe solicitors that they just don't vibe with, or who aren't necessarily supporting them in the way they need to. And it's very sad when they're so far down the line and they don't even know how much they're going to be charged. Yeah. And I know a lot of this is not the right way. It's not the way solicitors are supposed to behave. And I know a lot of solicitors are overwhelmed and they're under stress to have a certain number of clients, etc. But at the same time, it's important for people to have the right representation so they can have the right outcome at the end. So we have an award-winning solicitor, Keith Walsh, is going to come on and explain what should you expect from a solicitor, what should they be providing you, what to look out for, and if you need to change. And also key things like how to behave in court. I mean, I'd never been to a court before. I didn't know you had to call the judge your honor. I was like, ma'am, sir, how to dress. I had to swear on a Bible. I'm like, this is the stuff you just saw in movies, with criminals, and you're being treated this way in a court. It's really scary, and no one tells you what to expect. So all of that, what to expect, how to behave. We're also talking about domestic abuse. We have an expert coming in on domestic abuse to talk about, what to look out for. And also, even when people leave relationships that are full of coercive control and narcissism, unfortunately, that narcissism can still follow them even after the relationship. It could be control over the children, the finances, any other way they can control them despite having left. So we're going to focus on what can you do to really get away from that person and protect yourself, even if you've separated or divorced, and all these tips that could still be very useful for those who are still in those sort of relationships, and to prepare them for what to do afterwards. And that's unfortunately, a quarter of the population, of the female population, are in those sort of relationships in Ireland and around the world, unfortunately. And a lot of men as well. You'd be surprised how many men are caught in those relationships. So it's a very huge area to really keep a focus on. Then we're going to talk about co-parenting. So I'm going to talk, I'm an expert on the co-parenting area. I've done some extra studies on that. So how do you co-parent effectively across two households? What to expect from children at different ages when you tell them that you're going to separate and divorce, what behaviors you might see at different ages, and how to manage the children during the different transitions.
That can be very worrisome, can't it, with the children? It can be very worrisome how they're feeling,
Yeah, but sometimes it can be very simple for them. It's more about what's going to change in their life, the logistics around it for younger children. For older children, it can maybe, especially in the teenage years, it can impact them a little bit more because they're also maybe going through their own relationships as well. Yeah, and adult children as well, even if they're older and they have their own lives, it's interesting to see the impact it can have on them. Then each child is different as well. There's a whole bereavement process that each person is going to go through at different ages. We'll talk about that and how to put together a parenting plan as well. That might be more effective. So it's a lot to digest in that short space of time, but it's just quick nuggets because we don't have time to go deeply into it all. And then we also have someone from our Family Wizard, which is sort of a communications app that, you can communicate through the courts and through your ex on, and build out a parenting plan on without having to necessarily talk to your ex anymore.
Okay.
So it kind of is a way where all communications are on this one platform. So they can't, communicate with you any other way, and the court can see what they're saying to you.
That's very
helpful. Yeah. So that's the first part. We'll have a little panel after that. And then we dive into the whole finance part. So we have a money mindset coach. So she's lots of fun. She'll talk to you about how to sort your finances out before, during, and after your divorce. We have an experienced financial planner who's also a forensic accountant. There's a lot of questions are about how do I keep the house? But there's a lot more to think of than just the house. And do you really want to keep that house, really? So we delve into all of that. And I'll talk a little bit about financial control as well. So how do you know when you are experiencing a type of emotional and financial control? A lot of people don't realize that and what to do about that. We have a lady talking about pet custody as well. So what to do with the family dog or with the family pet, the cat, whatever pet you have, what the family pet would want, depending on the type of pet you have. And some suggestions on how to do pet custody. And for some people, they don't have children, but they have pets that they love very much like their children. And there aren't necessarily laws around that in the courts, but it's how to support your pet during the transition. And then we're going into the career area. So how do you support your career during this time? Because you could be going through a lot of overwhelm and emotional turmoil, mental health issues, and it could take a long time to get through. You need to expect about 2 to 5 years to fully recover and get yourself back on track, especially financially. So what do you do during that time? Because you can't risk losing your job. So how can you support yourself? Do you tell people at work or not? What policies might be there to support you? And there's a lot. We have a HR expert coming in, and I do a lot of work around that in companies. I have support groups that I support. I do talks to managers and employees and HR. So we'll be bringing a lot of that out. And now we go into a lot of the mental health and well-being stuff that and you're going to talk about the importance of sleep and supporting yourself during this time, because as you said, a lot of people don't get too much sleep. We have a coach coming in to talk about managing the feelings of the feelings of shame and failure and how to support yourself out of that. And then I'm going to do part of my top tips in my course on how to live your best life despite divorce, just taking them through a couple of simple exercises at the end. So we leave with a lot of hope, as there's so much information there. I mean, that's all in one day, right? So,
and it's long. And I have to put my hat off to you, Mel. Like you've everything. Well, it looks like when I say everything covered, like I know there's so many different variations. Like the solicitor, the finance, career, the narcissism, the domestic violence, the co-parenting, and all the emotions. You mentioned grief in there as well, the bereavement process, and because we're losing something, we're losing something that we used to have, like we married this person and we must have loved them one day, there was a day when we loved them, so there is a grief, and same with our children, and and
people go through the same grief cycle as they would if they lost a parent, or a close family member. So there's that same feeling of disbelief, if someone tells them they're leaving.
Yeah.
Or even themselves when they realize, oh my gosh, this relationship isn't working, I'm actually going to have to walk away from it. So there's that period of disbelief that they can't even believe that they are going to do this.
Yeah.
Then there's a feeling of anger. And then they go through trying to see if there's a way to patch things up. So kind of bargaining. And then there's a bit of depression as part of the whole process. So people shouldn't get down on themselves. They go through that. Yeah. It's normal. Yeah. And they might go through that in different ways over a certain amount of time. Everyone's different before they finally accept that it's over and move on, right? And each child will do that too. And each child will go through it differently. And the ex will go through that too. So whoever has decided to leave is usually out the other side and has accepted that the relationship is over, whereas the other person's only just beginning. And that's where a lot of the communication breakdown happens, during that. So it's understanding that whole cycle as well. That's really important.
Yeah, and I can really hear, you know, like when you're talking about all this, Mel, there's a lot of, like, you have an understanding, you have a, you know, of all the different behaviors and the whole psychological, why people behave in certain ways. And it's all down to safety as well. And, you know, with finances and, you know, how we're feeling, you know, our energy, you know, how we're feeling. Like you say, we go through this depression, and sometimes we can blame other people because we want to offset some of our shitty emotions onto another person. And even not if it's the husband or the wife, it could be the mother-in-law or whatever, you know, like getting them involved as well. We can fire at all these other people and not even realise it, but it's part of offsetting how we're feeling, you know, and to blame somebody if we can't deal with it, if we can't process it. I think that's just why
you chose the right word there. Actually, it's back to safety. You go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is that basic safety that your whole house is crumpled, your you know, your support is gone, and you have to rebuild it from the ground up. And so it's going back to that basic safety feeling.
And sometimes, Mel, you know, I've spoken to a lot of people, and you know, when you mentioned there's a 30% increase in the last number of years, I have spoken to an awful lot of people who've gone through the process. And Mel, they tell me that it's the happiest decision that they made, you know, when they finally came through it. You know, they're their new self. They've a new lease of life. You know, they've taken on something different, you know, and some have stayed in the same family home, some have moved or whatever, and some have kids. But just listen to the different stories, and there are a lot of them that are very grateful that it was painful, it was hard, but my God, when they got through it and they had the support, and that's what got them through, it was the support. They've all said that. And they're just thriving. So it could be, even though if you're in that situation now, it might seem like you mightn't be able to see the light of day, but have hope, work with the people who know about all this, who are professional like yourself and your team.
Yeah.
And
children will be okay. There's so many people who say, oh, we will stay together because of the children. But if you're in an unhappy relationship with no love or a lot of anger, the children are going to see that as normal, and they're going to carry that on to their own.
That's very true. That's very, and that happened to me. Yeah, that happened to me. I blamed my mother. I have a great relationship with my mother now, but at the time my father was dead. But I blamed my mother for keeping my dad in the house. He drank an awful lot, and you know, my story is out there on other podcasts. And I never knew why I hate my mother. I had a terrible relationship with my mother, but my mother was terrified to leave him, and there was various other reasons. But I've forgiven both parties now, because that was how I moved on from that, you know. But the whole blaming thing can really eat you up. It's like drinking poison. Drinking the poison, and you're drinking poison and you're expecting the other person to die. That's what all that anger and hatred, and you know, can really, you're really down with.
Happens when you're an adult and you understand a bit more about what happened, but as a child you don't really understand.
That's what happened to me. I didn't realise. Yeah. So Mel, look, I can't wait. I can't wait for this conference. So it's on the November the 10th. And what time does it start at, Mel? 9:30? Is that what you said?
9:30. Give people time to kind of get in. And our first speaker kicks off at 10. But I'll just be kind of covering a little bit around the history of divorce in Ireland, a little bit around coaching, and that cycle that we just talked about, that grief cycle. I'm waiting for people to come on. And we'll be kicking off from there, and I'll be finishing off around 5:30, with, closing off with what you talked about, how to move forward with your life, positive next steps, and there are so many people who are very happy if you do things the right way. And if you know the key things to stay away from and the biggest mistakes that people make, and stay away from that, you can go through this much faster and have some co-parenting at the end of it, and forward faster.
And I think you could look at this as an opportunity for growth, making yourself stronger. I know, like, that wouldn't land with people when they're going through the process necessarily, but it helps us to really have a look at ourselves and who we are being, because I think with the self-care and the well-being and the mental health and all that whole area, when we come back to ourselves and we feel really, really strong and grounded, and we're doing things that we love, like going out salsa dancing once a week, and we really do what we value, it can fill us up and really strengthen us and make us feel safe, and that we have enough, and just I can really see why that's important, Mel, and myself as a health coach as well, to really keep doing even those little things, even like just treat yourself to a cup of coffee every now and again or something like that, you know, just all these little things kind of add up and help your energy, you know, help you feel better about yourself. And that's what this is about at the end of the day. So that's what gives you the resilience.
I work with couples. That's the main thing, is that people aren't feeling that they can be their authentic selves. They feel like their authentic self is buried deep inside, you know, and they've had to do all this other stuff around it. And finally it just explodes. They need to leave. And so that's when I work with couples, it's around how can you allow each other to be who they need to be, give each other space, hang together if you can, you know. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's time to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mel, I have to say this has been an incredible conversation. You also have an academy as well. You train people?
Yeah, it's the divorcecoachingacademy.com. So we train people to become professional divorce coaches. Every February and every September we take on about 15 students each time. Wow. So we just take on a small handful twice a year. So our next cohort will be mid-February.
Right. Okay. So people can contact you there or reach out to you, check out
academy.com, or they can contact me at Mel Murphy at divorcecoachingireland.com if they just want to learn more about it.
Because I think nowadays, Mel, we need more and more coaches, you know, professionals to help bring people through this process.
Yeah, that was the first one in Ireland 3 years ago. I've trained in quite a few over in the UK, about 4 in Ireland. We definitely need a male divorce coach. And the people who, some of the people I trained in are going to be speaking at this conference. So Mary Vaughan has a background in HR. Fiona Gaffney has a background in finance. We have Claire Alkmaty, who was actually an emergency health nurse beforehand. We've had people who come from, who have been counsellors or mental health experts who've done it as well. Ex-lawyers, mediators, you know, people have lots of different backgrounds to being coaches.
And the forensic psychologist as well. I've never really heard that term too many times. That's powerful. Forensic.
Yes, Sue Palmer-Khan, she's amazing. She's the dean of a college. She's actually had, I think, some prize, you know, named after her for what she's done. She's lots of award-winning. She's retired now, but she still trains people to become divorce coaches. She's got a wealth of experience behind her. Tom Nash, Mr. Divorce Coach. He comes with the male side of things. He helps support a lot of men as well as women. Yeah, and he just kind of keeps us making sure that we don't say too many bad things about men, right? So the men can get the wrong side of the stick sometimes too. We need to make sure we balance everything out. And he has a good, excellent co-parenting. He actually, his ex-wife is now going out with his current partner's ex-husband. So they almost swapped partners, and they co-parent 4 children between them effectively. So there's a lot of good co-parenting. And, you know, if you're going to get married or move on to another relationship, how to make it work, that he brings into this too.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's really important. And I love that you have male speakers as well, because I've known men who have gone through the process and they found it like really difficult because the laws weren't really in favour in certain areas. I mean, you may go into all of that on the day. But I do remember this was a couple of years ago. He was a very close friend of mine going through all of that, and it was like I couldn't believe some of the stuff that he was been told that he didn't have any rights to, and it was actually disgusting, some of the stuff, you know. So, but anyway, I don't know what has changed since then. But all that will be answered on the day. And look, Mel, I think this is an incredible event, and I'm just so blessed to know you and that you're putting this event on for the people, you know, because we're going through enough shite in the world, you know, without having, you know, a relationship problem like this, you know. And if we can get through it with this support network and these highly, highly valuable people that you have coming to speak who can answer people's questions, because there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things that people don't know going through this process. They don't know where to turn. The solicitor, as you mentioned as well, and it can be very daunting, very overwhelming, and people can just be resigned to the whole thing and just living with it and putting up with it, and that doesn't do anybody. That doesn't work either, and for the children as well.
So it's important that people know that if they can't make the whole day, of course, you know, that's normal. But if they buy a ticket, we'll record it, and they can get access to the recording afterwards. In the privacy of their own car or home or office, wherever they need to be.
Fantastic. I didn't know you recorded it. Okay, fantastic. And and as you say, you treat this with confidentiality with anybody who comes into the breakout rooms and what have you. The cameras can be off. They don't have to speak if they don't want to. They can just listen. So you do what you want to do.
So it's a webinar, so we won't be recording all of that.
And the price is €25. Is that right?
That was the early bird, which was finished at 25.
45. Well, that's very good.
Full day. And part of those proceeds goes to Focus Ireland. So it's to help homelessness. So, we are supporting that charity with this. Yeah.
Right. Okay. God, you're doing good causes as well, supporting charities. Yeah. And that is a big area. And you supported, what did you support last year? It was a different charity.
Last year we supported Women's Aid, Men's Aid, and Barnardo's.
Yeah.
And this year we were going to support the Peter McVerry Trust, but they were, as well as Focus Ireland, so they're just going through a lot of overwhelm right now. So we're going to wait till next year to support.
Yeah. Okay. So even for €45, that's incredible. €45, Jen, you'd pay that for maybe 30 minutes of counsel or more even. So we have this for the whole day, and the experts that you have in, so it's definitely well worth. And it gives people a bit of power back, doesn't it, Mel? At the end of the day,
10 expert speakers, or actually 11 expert speakers, for the full day and all that knowledge. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be really great. It's going to give people a lot of information that they need when they're going through a challenging time.
Where can people register for this event, Mel?
It's on Eventbrite, so I sent you the links we put onto this because it's a kind of a complicated link.
I think what I'm going to do is
Divorce Coaching Ireland on Eventbrite. You should find it.
Say that again. Divorce
in Ireland conference.
Okay, so they can search that. Okay, perfect.
Eventbrite.
I'm going to put a QR code up on the screen. This is recorded now, so I'm going to put a QR code up on the screen as well for that link as well, and I'll put it on the show notes as well, just to make it really easy for people to find. And I do hope to see loads of people at the event who need these services. And as you say, they can pop in and out on the day as well. And when they pay for it, then they get the recording as well. So that's a super bonus as well. Mel, listen, thank you so much for putting this on. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for being who you are and having that compassionate heart for people as well, and really going above and beyond to help people, because it truly does mean an awful lot for so many people who are experiencing these difficulties and challenges at the moment. So, Mel, I will see you on the 10th of November.
All right. Thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I'm sure you've got loads of great things on how to support yourself and make sure you get enough sleep during this time.
Absolutely. Okay, Mel, listen, thank you so much again for being here. And it's been a pleasure as always. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
I do hope you are enjoying these conversations, and to help me continue putting these videos and audio podcasts together, I do have an ask. I do need support to help me to keep bringing you knowledge and insights. There is a Patreon link, patreon.com/empowering family health, or you can make a donation via PayPal. All the links are in the description and the pinned comment. You can do a one-off, or you can do a monthly support. So I'd really appreciate that. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Take care.